Well, good morning, everyone. I'm told that most of our classes that are joining us via teleconference have now hooked up, so we're going to get started. I'm Steve Perry. I'm the President and Executive Director of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you here today to Cleveland Browns Stadium for this very special program. It's a beautiful audience of young people that are, I'm sure, anxious to hear from these individuals that are a part of our panel this morning, and we're delighted that you're here. You are going to have, I think, a very, very rare opportunity today to discuss with this distinguished panel of former Cleveland Browns football players and men who are now successful in their post-career. You'll have an opportunity to hear from them. You'll have an opportunity to ask them questions about how did they get from your age in life to the level of success that they achieved. You might look at them and know their football record and their career, and you'd say maybe it was because of their special talent, maybe it was easy for them, maybe things just happened and they were blessed. But I think when they tell their story of how things were when they were your age and how they progressed from that point in time to where they are today, that you'll realize that they achieved their success by conquering the challenges and the trials and tribulations that they had. And you can do the same thing. That's what this program is about, to talk about how they did it and how you might do it. Now, before we begin our panel discussion, I'd like to just acknowledge all the people from the Cleveland Browns. May anyone on the teleconference, would you please mute your mics? Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge some of the people from the Browns organization who have made this program possible and invited all of us to be here today, and that certainly includes Executive Vice President of Business Operations Brian Wiedemeyer, and his son John is here today. Certainly Tony Dick from Alumni Relations, and Jeremy, who's working with him. Kevin Mack, also from Alumni Relations. Jennifer Takancic, Brittany Young, Renee Harvey, so many of the people from the Cleveland Browns organization.
Join the conference. Join the conference.
And enough about each one of you that they wanted to have this program. So, and then from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, in addition to myself, we have Jerry Shockey and Adam Shipley, who are part of this program. So let's give all those folks that made this possible a big round of applause.
Welcome to Polycom Conference Recorder.
Through the magic of technology, we have 16 schools from around the
conference
country, many
recording
in Ohio,
has
but many
started.
in other places, who are tied into the conference. And I want to just quickly announce who they are. We have Lions Creek Middle School in Coconut Creek, Florida. Mid Park High School in Middleburg Heights, Ohio. Ayersville High School in Defiance, Ohio. Founders Hall Middle School in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. Suffern Middle School in Suffern, New York. Broad Creek Middle School in Newport, North Carolina. Warrensville Heights High School in Warrensville Heights, Ohio. Pittsburgh Carmelt in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. R.T. Cream Family School in Camden, New Jersey. Heritage Middle School in East Cleveland, Ohio. KSU Stark Campus in North Canton, Ohio. Lorraine High School in Lorraine, Ohio. Driftwood Middle School in Hollywood Hills, Florida. Shaw High School in East Cleveland, Ohio. Payne Point Middle School in Camden, New Jersey. And Summer Creek High School in Houston, Texas. So let's give all of them a round of applause for being with us today. We have 150 people or so in the room and several hundreds who are tied in by teleconference. And I particularly want to acknowledge the schools that are with us in the room. And feel free to give a little shout out when I name your school. I understand we have some students here from John Adams High School. Let's hear it. There we are. Do we have anybody here from John Hay Football? And we have James F. Rhodes Football. Martin Luther King Jr. High Steppers. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have the Whitney Young Football Cheerleader.
To join our conference, you may use the box camera. Please enter the conference number followed by the pound key.
All right, I'm going to remind you on the teleconference, if you will mute your mics again, please. As I said a few moments ago, the purpose of today's program is to enable each student here to hear from and ask questions of the members of this panel so that you can benefit from the lessons that they've learned during the course of their careers to overcome challenges. Some of those challenges may have been racial barriers. Some of those challenges may have been other things that they encountered, and that's what we're here to talk about. They want to share that information with each of you so that you can overcome whatever challenges you face as you attempt to achieve your career goals and your dreams in life. Now, I'm going to give a brief introduction of each individual, and then they'll make some remarks, and then we're going to open the program for your questions. I'm going to start with Bobby Mitchell. Bobby Mitchell was born in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and he currently resides in Washington, D.C. with his lovely wife, Gwen. When Bobby was your age and about to graduate from high school, he was such a good athlete that he was offered a contract to play professional baseball with the St. Louis Cardinals. He declined that offer because he wanted to go to college. And he did go to college, and he played football as a halfback at the University of Illinois. Mr. Mitchell was obviously very successful in football, but he was also successful in track and obviously baseball. He set a track record, the indoor world record, in the 70-yard low hurdles with a 7.7 mark. Mr. Mitchell had plans to compete in the 1960 Olympics in track. However, in 1958, Cleveland Browns coach Paul Brown convinced him that he should pursue a pro football career. And obviously, Bobby had great success in his pro football career here at the Cleveland Browns, as well as the last 7 seasons for the Washington Redskins. He finished his pro football career as a 4-time Pro Bowler, a 5-time All-Pro selection, a member of the Cleveland Browns Legends and Ring of Honor, and the Redskins Ring of Fame. In 1983, Mr. Mitchell received the highest honor that a professional football player can achieve when he was enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. After retiring from football in 1968, he remained with the Redskins, and he gradually moved up the ranks to assistant general manager of that organization until his retirement in 2003. Over the years, Bobby has worked to give back by supporting a large variety of community organizations and charities. Since 1980, he has raised millions and millions of dollars for children and adults who are suffering with leukemia and lymphoma. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Bobby Mitchell. The next distinguished member of this panel is Greg Pruitt. Greg Pruitt was born in Houston, Texas. He attended the University of Oklahoma, where he was an outstanding running back. During both 1971 and 72 seasons, Mr. Pruitt was selected as an All-Big 8 running back and an All-America running back. He ranks 3rd all-time among Oklahoma Sooners in career all-purpose yards with 3,122 rushing yards, 491 receiving yards, 139 yards on punt returns, and 679 yards returning kickoffs. He scored 41 career touchdowns, and in 1999, Mr. Pruitt was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. The Cleveland Browns selected Mr. Pruitt in the 1973 draft. He had an immediate positive impact on the Browns offense, and he led them in rushing during his 2nd season. Currently, he ranks 3rd in combined yards and pass receptions and 4th in rushing on the Browns' all-time list. He rushed for 5,672 yards and 1,196 attempts, scored 27 touchdowns during his career. In addition, Pruitt had 328 pass receptions for a total of 3,069 yards and 18 touchdowns. Greg played 9 of his 12 seasons with the Browns and his remaining 3 seasons with the Oakland Raiders. In 2001, this Cleveland Browns legend was inducted into the Cleveland Browns Legends organization, and he currently resides in Shaker Heights, where he owns and operates his own construction business while still finding time to give back to his community. As a matter of fact, Greg ranks in the top 10 each year among the active alumni for appearances made through the Cleveland Browns Alumni Department. So please welcome Mr. Greg Pruitt. The next member of this distinguished panel is Paul Wiggin. Mr. Wiggin was born in Modesto, California. He currently resides in Minnesota with his wife, Carolyn. Mr. Wiggin attended Stanford University, where he was a two-time All-Pac-10 and All-America defensive end. He was named to Stanford's Defensive Player of the Century by the fans who voted. While at Stanford, Mr. Wiggins earned both of his bachelor's and his master's degree in education. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2005. After graduating from Stanford University, he was drafted in 1956 by the Cleveland Browns as a defensive end. During his 11 seasons with the Browns, he never missed a game, playing in 146 straight regular season games. Mr. Wiggins had 3 career interceptions, returning one of them for a touchdown in 1960. He twice earned Pro Bowl honors, and he was a key member of the team's defensive line that went to 3 NFL title games, including the 1964 NFL Championship victory over the Baltimore Colts. Upon his retirement from playing football, he was named assistant coach for the San Francisco 49ers. He subsequently moved over as the head coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, and after some seasons there, he moved to the New Orleans Saints. In 1980 through 84, he was the head coach at Stanford University, his alma mater. And for the last 28 years, he's been part of the Minnesota Vikings organization. He started with the Vikings after their defensive line coach in 1985, as their defensive line coach in 1985. And currently, Mr. Wiggins serves as senior consultant for pro personnel, where he assists in the evaluation of NFL players and advanced scouting on upcoming opponents. So please welcome Mr. Paul Wiggin. Our last guest on this panel is Mr. John Wooten, born in Carlsbad, New Mexico, and he currently lives with his lovely wife, Juanita, in Arlington, Texas. In high school, Mr. Wooten was an outstanding student, and he was an outstanding athlete. He was named All-State in both football and basketball. He went on to attend the University of Colorado, where he received his Bachelor of Science degree in education. In 1959, he was named to the Chicago Tribune's College All-Star team. When he graduated from college in 1959, he was drafted by the Browns, and again, he had an immediate positive impact on the Browns, often blocking for Jim Brown on power sweeps. He also was a key part of that 1964 Cleveland Brown World Championship team. Mr. Wooten was selected to the Pro Bowl in 65 and 66. He finished his playing career in 68 with the Washington Redskins. During the off-season in 60 to 63, Mr. Wooten taught school right here in Cleveland, Ohio. He was a teacher at Addison Junior High School. After his playing days were over, he continued his career in the NFL by becoming the director of pro scouting with the Dallas Cowboys. He later became vice president of player personnel with the Philadelphia Eagles, and later joined the Baltimore Ravens and served as assistant director of pro college scouting until his retirement in 2002. In 2010, John Wooten was inducted into the Cleveland Browns Legends organization. He currently serves as chairman of the Fritz Pollard Alliance, which is a group that is working with the NFL as it relates to minority hiring of coaches and scouting and scouts and other positions in the front office. So please welcome Mr. John Wooten.
Thank you.
Now you can tell by those bios that I just read, and that was a very abbreviated bios. These are men of great accomplishment. And to achieve their accomplishment, they had to conquer a number of challenges. Hopefully every single young person in this audience someday will sit on a stage like this and be recognized as individuals with great accomplishments. That's what we want you to think about today, and that's what these individuals are going to give you some insight as to how to achieve that. I want to ask each of them to make a brief statement about themselves or ask questions of you or whatever they'd like to do, and I'm going to start at the far end with Mr. John Wooten.
Thank you. The thing that I think is most important and relevant to what we hear about and so forth in terms of the celebration of Black history is the very simple fact that we stand on the shoulders of someone else who paid the price for where we are. As we talk to young people all the time, we want to make sure you understand how important education, preparation, and having goals, objectives that you want to accomplish. And the better those goals serve to help other people, the more committed you want to become and the more relevant it will be in your life. That old saying about it's better to give than to receive is so important as you move through life. The thing that I think all of us have in common here, the four of us, is the fact that we have seen and we have done things in our lives that help other people, and that is what's most rewarding, and that's what we want to share here with you today. Thank you.
Of course, I agree with John. I was just going to mention the fact that I was born and raised in California, and California is different than a lot of other places in the world, at least at that time, because I was in the rural part of that state, and there weren't many black kids or black families that were in the farming community. And so we didn't have some of the feelings that some of the people feel today, not today, but felt at that time. And I recall a story. I coached a guy named Bobby Bell with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Bobby Bell was talking one day about how he was named first team All-American. By the way, a great linebacker. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But he was talking about when he became a first-team All-American, and he was on a nationally televised show representing the All-American football team. And because he was there, his hometown in Shelby, South Carolina, a little town, decided to have a special day for him. So he came home, and the mayor got up, and they offered Bobby Bell the key to the city. And he got the key, and he felt so honored, and he said, he talked to the mayor after the ceremony. He says, "Now, Mayor, that I've got this key to the city, can I go across the street to that ice cream parlor and have an ice cream cone?" And the mayor said, "No, not yet, Bobby." And I think about that, and I think about the unfairness of that in time. And we're here to talk about the history a little bit, about what's gone on. But think about that at time. I just find that kind of painful to even hear. But that thing is really stuck in my mind, and I have a lot of respect for Bobby Bell and how he handled it and everything. But a special guy, and it just tells you a little bit of what history was back in about 1957 or 58, somewhere in that time.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
And Mr. Greg Pruitt.
Well, I'd like to echo what these gentlemen said too, and I agree that we have achieved things on the shoulders of people who have gone before us, and that's so true. When I look out here, it reminds me of many years ago when I was your age, and someone who had accomplished some things that took the time to share with us on how they got to those points, and that's really why we're here today. It's just, when I think about all the things that I had to go through and all the things that I learned, I want to share that with you. My grandfather was a big influence on me, and he taught us through cliches, and he always had a saying for everything. And one of the things he used to always say is, "A trick untried is never justified." And in the minds of those men who never try, the most they can ever do is wonder. And I used to quote that all the time, not really knowing what it meant. And when I first started out in sports, I was told I was too small. And my lesson in that is, if you want to be a lawyer, a teacher, doctor, whatever it is that you want to be, you to find out what you need to do to become that. But don't let someone tell you that you can't be there in sports. Don't let someone tell you you're too small, you're not fast enough, you don't jump high enough, you're not smart enough. Go find out for yourself. In most cases, you're going to find out you're better than you thought you was. There are decisions you have to make. You make them every day. You made a good decision on being here today, because hopefully if you listen, you're going to learn something that's going to help you when you find yourself in a decision-making situation, and maybe something we said may help you in influencing you in making the right decision. But I see a lot of potential. I kind of do this, I guess, because I'm selfish, because I think the future is in our kids. I think one day, one thing you can't control, tomorrow you'll be one day older than you was yesterday, and you'll look up one day and you'll be adults and you'll be in positions to run this country. We will be at your mercy. How do we prepare you to run this country? And so that's one of the things we do, is try to help prepare you so that we can live and sleep well later on in our years. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And now we're going to hear from Mr. Bobby Mitchell.
Thank you. I'm awful glad to be here. My road to this point is pretty crazy. I was born in the South, in Arkansas. And my senior year, I didn't know if I was going to further my education or pick cotton for the rest of my life. And it's interesting how things happen. The next thing I knew, I had been offered a scholarship. Obviously, my family had no money. And I'm on the caboose of a train heading north. And the only person in that part of the train was me by myself. Because I was not allowed to sit forward. And I rode that train all the way to Illinois. University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. Didn't know if I was good enough. Didn't know if I would last it. Let's move forward.
All right, Bobby. Thank you. You know, this program, which is a part of Black History Month, is an opportunity for us to think about the progress that has been made in our country, in our society, with respect to racial justice. And I can tell you that these four men who are sitting in front of you had a great deal to do with that progress, because they were willing to have goals and commit themselves to achieving those goals no matter what the obstacles were. A person like Mr. Wiggins, who may not have been discriminated against, personally was willing to stand up for his teammates and to make sure that people around him did the right thing. So you're looking at people who may not be in the history book with Martin Luther King or others who were involved in the leadership of the Civil Rights Movement, but they are people who have made history in that sense. And as a result of what they endured, all of you have a very different situation with respect to the challenges that you will face as you pursue your career. So let's give them all another round of applause for this. Now, I want to offer an opportunity for you to ask a question. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to start with a question? Anything that you'd like to know about any of these individuals? I see two young ladies in the back. We'll go with the young lady over here first, and then I think she said, how did you handle racism and or unfair teammates and coaches? Who would like to start with that?
Well,
racism and or unfair teammates or coaches.
if you leave home with some values from mom and dad, aunt and uncle, grandma, for some reason, you always kind of make the right move. When things first come to you, you don't know what you're going to do because you're not experienced. Just handling people who are so far ahead of you at these types of things. Because when I arrived at university, I obviously couldn't room with any white students. I couldn't even room with any white players. Not only that, I was not in the brick buildings. I was in buildings that was called parade ground units that they've used for the military. But remember this, that didn't mean the classes was any easier because you have to do the same thing everybody else does. Nobody's going to give you anything. You're going to do what everybody else does, no matter how handicapped you are. And coming from the South during my time, there were so many things you couldn't do. When our team traveled to play sports, it was very difficult because you couldn't stop anywhere. There were no restrooms. You couldn't stay anywhere because there were no hotels, motels available to you. So we traveled many, many, many miles to play our games. But you make these adjustments because mom and dad talk to you about what you want out of life. You got to be better than me. You got to do better than me. Which is the same thing you'll be teaching your kids. You got to be better than me. And of all the things that I learned through the many, many years, it doesn't matter how great I become, how many legends I am, because the greatest legend I can leave my kids is a great education. That's what you have to remember.
Anyone else want to comment on that question?
Well, I kind of came in a little later. We stayed in the dorms together. All the athletes stayed together, but probably like Bobby, I was the first to go to college, and my goal was to be the first to get a degree. Man, and you talk about heroes. I would say the hero in my life was my mom. My parents separated when I was very young, so my mom was my mom and my dad. And she was disciplined, and I guess when I reflect back on my life, you got to make decisions, like I said, and I decided to listen to what my mom told me. Even if I didn't like it, I listened to what she told me. I had some difficult times at Oklahoma. Worked real hard, being considered too small when I came there. In fact, I found out later that Oklahoma recruited me because my high school coach and one of the linemen coach at Oklahoma was interested in a linebacker, which was an underclassman to me, and everybody was after him. His name was Gene Sellers. And my coach cut a deal with him if Oklahoma would give me a scholarship, that he would make sure that they got Gene Sellers. Well, it took me a year to establish myself, and the next year Gene Sellers went to UCLA. But that was the opportunity that I got. And it wasn't easy. We worked real hard. And you have disappointments. It don't always go the way you think it was going to go. In fact, at one time I really wanted to quit Oklahoma. And I remember calling my mom, because I ran everything through her, and I called my mom. And when you say something silly, she screams and hollers at you. And so I told my mom on the phone, I said, I think I'm going to quit. I think I'm coming home. And I didn't hear anything. I put the phone like that, I was waiting on her to scream and holler. So I pick up the phone back to my ear, and I said, did you hear what I said? She ignored the question, and she said, do you have a pencil and a piece of paper? I said, yeah. She said, well, write this number down. So I started writing the number down. I recognized the area code. It was Houston. So I said, well, what number is this? She said, that's your uncle's. I said, well, he gonna come pick me up? She said, I don't know. She said, call him and tell him what you just told me and see if he will, because you can't come here. I didn't raise no question. And I boo-hooed and boo-hooed. And, I came up in the church. My mom said, change the things you can and deal with the things you can't. And, God gonna make the right decision for you. And I stayed there. And 3 weeks later, the guy in front of me got hurt. Big game at Iowa State. It was going to be the upset of the century. I got to play the second half, scored 2 touchdowns, scored the winning points, and I never looked back. Everything changed in my life. So, you got to find the people that love you, and you got to know that they love you, and know that the advice that they give you might not be the advice that you like, but it's the best advice that they can give you, and you got to make those decisions.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Wiggins, how about in your experiences as a person in California in high school or college or in the pros, what experiences did you witness where racial prejudice played a role?
Well, I wish every young person in America could be on a team with mixed racial people, and I believe that. Because I think I can recall being part of the World Championship in 1964, and I can remember walking off the field and how I felt about being part of the best of the world. And John Wooten was there. Bobby wasn't. Bobby'd gone to the Redskins, but I can tell you it didn't matter. Race didn't even enter into it. And I think when you're on, and I'll ask you football players in this audience, if you're part of a football team, somehow color isn't part of that. If the guy scoring the touchdown is black, and then or if the guy blocking for him isn't black, it's part of being a football team. And I think that's kind of what I love about sports. I really think that is really a vital part of life, some form, because you do have that feeling. At least I did. And I can tell you when I walked off the field, was I glad that John Wooten was blocking for a guy named Jim Brown, and Paul Warfield was catching passes, and Walter Beach was playing defensive back behind me, and in the same huddle I was in. I loved everything about that, and they were my teammates. They weren't anything more than that, and I think that was a big part of what being on a team like, and I love the Cleveland Browns. In my life, I couldn't have gone to a better place. This is a great sports city, and I loved it. And but I didn't able to make that decision. But if I made a decision, it would have been an intelligent decision. And I think part of what we're doing today here is to try to tell you that when those major decisions come into your life, make the right ones, because you're going to have a lot of people tell you and make the wrong ones. But make the right ones, because you all are going to be our age someday. And you want to look back at your life and say, this is what I did. That's why I'm here. That's why I got to do that, and that's why I did this. Because if you make a wrong decision along the way, boy, you're going to go in the wrong direction. But My feeling is I love being on a football team at that time. And Bobby Mitchell, for example, was the first black player of the Washington Redskins. Wasn't that right, Bobby? And I can't imagine being on a football team and not having the camaraderie of all of those people. And Bobby probably got story after story after what he had to go through, because in a way he was like baseball, or anybody making the first move into something. But anyway, that's my input.
Thank you. Mr. Wooten?
Let me just make mention of the fact of what Wig just talked about there with Bobby. The thing that we want you to see and understand, and I know that most of the particular football players are very much in tune with the fact that Bobby Mitchell is Hall of Famer and a great player. But I want you to understand what happened in '62 here. Bobby, all of us had been together except Pruitt. Pruitt's the youngest group of the group here. But the point we want to make is that when the decision was made that Bobby Mitchell was going to go to the Redskins, now the Washington Redskins in our nation's capital was the only team that did not have any black players. And Mitch is going, Bobby Mitchell, as we call him Mitch, is going to have to go down there and become the first black player. They had long been against this in terms of the Washington Redskins. As a matter of fact, when we would play down there, the thing that would get us riled up the most was that they would play Dixie. That was their big theme song, Dixie. Wish I Was in Dixie, and this land of cotton and so forth. And that became our fight song. And I'm not sure, I don't think they ever beat us during that time, you know, because of the fact. But going back to what the young lady questioned, there's going to be times that you're going to be confronted with racism at all levels, not just coaches, not just players and so forth. And the thing that you want to always do from a point of respect is that you never let someone else cause you to be what you dislike. In other words, just because they are trying to put this race card or whatever on you, don't you revert back to it and start to say, well, I'm not going to have anything to do with that group of people and so forth. What you want to do always is carry yourself in such a respectful manner that if they want to try to use that against you, they're not going to be able to use it. You're going to be most prepared in your work, and this is what sports has done for us in this country and all of us sitting up here today. Because sports allows you to go and compete at the highest level, disregarding race, color, any of that. It allows you to do that. And that's what we preach to all of our young people and to the whole country, that all that you ever want is the opportunity to show what you can do. But don't ever back down from it. Stand straight in front of it, speak to it, showcase it, and tell that individual, be a coach or whatever, you tell me what I have to do to achieve the goal that I want. That's all I ask of you, that you teach me what you teach everybody else. And as far as teammates are concerned, you carry yourself in that same manner. Front it, deal with it, and you'll see that it'll come out better for everybody.
Thanks, John. There was a young lady in the back who also had a question. Go right ahead.
Good morning, my name is Nina Moreno and I attend Whitney Young High School. Because you all have overcome many challenges and accomplished many goals and have many accomplishments, what advice would you give to athletes on how to accomplish goals and gain many accomplishments?
Great question. Who would like to start with? What do you have to do? Greg?
Well, I think that you have to find something that motivates you. And for me, you know, from day one, I was the smallest guy. And I was always told I was too small. So I'd always like to make a big play, and then I would tell the opposing team, the big guys, you lost today because that little guy that was supposed to be out there, you couldn't handle. That was my motivation. And, you know, I've always said, and my grandfather used to always tell me another thing is, you know, when you work and you do something, you paint a portrait of yourself. And you want that portrait to be beautiful. And so you work hard to accomplish that. But you work hard, you do the things you're supposed to do. And you got to have some religion in that too. You know, sometimes when you by yourself and things are not working out, and you don't know what you need to do, sometimes you got to talk to God. You know, and I used to always say the Lord's Prayer before, and my prayer to God was, you gave me this talent, let's see it. And most of the time he let me express that on the field, and that in turn made me play well and be recognized, and so that was my motivation.
Paul?
On my way here on the plane, I was reading a book. It was written in 1937. It was written by a guy named Eric Butterworth, and I was just reading the first chapter, and one of the things that he did, he had a lot of success in his life, and it was a success book. But he had his own dictionary, and he took dictionary and he took the word impossible and he cut it out. And took it out of the thing. He said that there's nothing in this world that's impossible. You've got to find a way, you've got to think right, you've got to do things. And I think when you get in that mode of thinking, that level of thinking, that trumps a lot of bad decisions. You're going to make and do the things, if you program yourself to do what you really want to do. And I think there's a lot of bright young people here that have a lot of things that they can do out in the world that you can't even imagine, but it'll come into your mind. But if you get the idea that you can do it and you find a way to do it, it may be in athletics, it may be, as some people talk about, medicine, anything. But if you have the right attitude, I know where I came from, I was obsessed with wanting to be an athlete. I wanted to be an athlete, and my father was smart enough to say, look, Paul, if you want to be an athlete, you got to lay the groundwork in other directions. You've got to get, if you want to go to a school like Stanford, you might think in terms of studying. And so at a young age, I studied. And so there were things that I did to do the things that I wanted to do. And I had in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. And fortunately, I was probably blessed with a little more talent than my four brothers. And so I was the one who was able to go and get a scholarship and do all of the things. But part of it I created. Really, I created it. And you guys can create it. Whatever it is in your life you want to do. And you're going to look at financial things. You're going to look at all kinds of things that are going to stop you. You think are going to stop you. But you just keep thinking in terms of what you want and keep trying to do that. And like I say, that mentality is a wonderful mentality that trumps so many bad things that can happen in your life.
If I could just sort of reiterate what these men have said in answer to that question, because you have to have some specifics. And what they said, among other things, first of all, you ought to recognize that there are opportunities. I mean, some people, some young people, for reasons that I will never understand, are very negative. They don't have a lot of hope for their own future. And as a result of not having hope or optimism, they don't set goals and they don't strive to achieve. I'm sure that's not the case here. You should be optimistic about your future. There's tons of things that you can do. Things that maybe for some of us you couldn't have done in the past, but they've taken care of that. The road to equality has been moved a great deal. So number one, you have to have some optimism, some hope for your own future. That ought to enable you to be willing to set a challenging goal for yourself. Do something big, something that would make you proud if you're able to achieve it. And then they also said, you can't just wish, that to be able to achieve. You have to work at it. You have to get your education. You have to take that seriously. If you really want to achieve your goals, then to not excel in school is not an option. You have to say, I am going to excel in school because that's a route to my goal. They also said that once you have those goals and you start doing the things that you need to do to move yourself toward those goals, don't make the mistake of making a bad choice. A bad choice that will move you away from your goal, whether that choice is to not work hard in school, whether that choice is to get involved in crime or other kinds of negative things, whether it's to be involved in drugs or whatever. You have to make sure that you make right choices that move you toward those goals. That's what I think they're asking you to consider. And then they all have said what will help make all that happen is that you make sure that you develop yourself as a person of good character. So if you want a prescription as to what is necessary for you to someday be able to sit on a stage like this and be recognized as people with great accomplishments and a very happy and satisfactory life, that's the prescription. Set your goals, work hard, make good choices. I just want to reiterate what they've said. Now, Bobby?
Quick point to make. You know what we're dealing with here for you is this life. I've had 7, 8 years of it. We're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it doesn't matter what we say to you. You're going to experience the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm so fortunate to end up in the Hall of Fame. But man, that's a long, long road. You don't wake up tomorrow in the Hall of Fame. If you just take the time to think about how long it is, you got to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're living in the good times, no matter how rough it is. No matter what you're denied, no matter how many times you didn't make the grades you want, you're in the good times. And if you don't walk out of here with your high school diploma, you're crazy. Because what's waiting for you, the bad times. Those professors in college, they don't give you nothing. Bad times. And you're going to change your mind over and over and over exactly what you want to be. Now, I can see the athletes. We've all been through it. I can see you. Because you're going to be a bad dude. And you're going to make a lot of money. Well, John Wooten travels the country dealing with guys who thought that they didn't. So let's go back to the good. Don't you let anybody run you out of your high school without that diploma. I don't care what they say. I don't care how many times they put you in remedial this and remedial that. Don't you leave here without it. Because if you don't get it, you're not going on that long road. You're not going on that long road. And during the tough times, you will be shocked once you walk high school how many opportunities open up. Where am I going to get a scholarship from? How am I going to get to school? My mom don't have no money. Dad don't have no money. We all went through that. You don't know where it's going to come from. But once you walk out with it, For some reason, it opens. It comes from everywhere. So you got to be ready to take advantage of it. And I don't even want to get into the ugly, because the ugly is when you guys pick up the paper and you see a great star arrested for drunken driving and killing people, and we go on and on and on and on and on and on. It's ugly. And everything that you're doing now is preparing you to accept the responsibility so that you can get through the ugly times. And I'll tell you something, it just doesn't matter how much money you got. John Wooten's worth $1 billion. It doesn't matter how much money you have. But if you want to go the distance, you got to start here. Right where you are right now. Nobody get you out of your schools without that high school diploma.
Thank you, Bobby. I think we have a question down here, John, in the front row.
Hello, yes. My question is from Mr. Bobby Mitchell. My name is Sean Derek Richards from John Adams. You talked about your time in the South, and you played for the Washington Redskins, which is one of the most racist teams in those times. How was it?
When my coach, Paul Brown of the Cleveland Browns, traded me to the Washington Redskins, it's good I didn't have, well, anyway. No, it was really a rude awakening, because I thought that the nation capital, I'm living with the president, obviously everything would be super. But I found out that quickly that I couldn't go into any restaurant I wanted to. And my little kid being denied an ice cream cone, she's walking in like the other kids to get an ice cream cone. They just keep walking by her. She's trying to give them her money. That hurts. And I made a determination at that time, because these things were just going on consistently. I'm sitting at a very famous restaurant downtown Washington, and my wife and I are the only blacks in there, and we were sitting with some other people. And a man walks by me, coming down the aisle, leaving, and spit down on my foot. This is Washington, D.C., 6th. And I happened to be sitting with a newspaper guy who was pretty famous around town. And he immediately grabbed me and said, no, he didn't. No, he didn't do nothing. He didn't do anything. Because he was saving me. Because if I had done anything, I'd been out of the league. You'd never heard of me again. Because during that time, most of the teams had 4, 6 blacks, no more. Some only had 2. And you wouldn't believe the talent that had to go home simply because no jobs in the National Football League, because the coaches only going to take 2 guys or 4 guys. Paul Brown broke out through it. I guess we had about 6 or 7 guys. And the league looking at him saying, what are you doing? These are the kinds of things that you have to work past. I mentioned values to you early on. You've got to do something about that, because they put us on this pedestal. And you know yourself, you walk around and you're constantly looking at a guy, and his pedestal is just because mistakes, wrong decisions. That's what it's all about. And if I had not gone, and I said this all the time, if I had not come to Cleveland first and been with the likes of Jim Brown and John Wooten and the guys who were strong individuals, strong, because I was a weakling, I'll tell you the truth. I was a young Southern boy, weak. And I built up some strength, and that is what saved me when I arrived at Washington. Because now I'm out front, the focus is on me, I got to say the right thing, do the right thing, and perform. And I had the strength that when I was denied, when I was mistreated, things said, you know, you don't feel too good running down the field in the stands, they're calling you all kind of names. Run, nigga! You know, that's, you hear it, you can't help but hear it. But you got to get through all of that. And you got to keep that pedal so strong. So for the sports kids in here, you just got to remember that. Everywhere you look now, bad reports on doing this, doing that, killing people, and I mean, it's just terrible.
Well, I'm going to add to Bobby's answer. I think it is very important to remember what he had to confront, all the prejudice and so forth. But it's also important to remember the fact that he persevered. And where did he end up? Not only in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, he's the assistant general manager of the Washington Redskins, the team that didn't want him. Now he runs the place. So that's the lesson. It isn't whether you get knocked down. You're all going to get knocked down. Everybody in this room, you're going to have disappointments in life. The issue is, do you have the strength of character and conviction of a Bobby Mitchell or John Wooten or Paul Wiggin or Greg Pruitt to rise up and persevere? That's what they're talking about. And that's what Bobby did.
See, let me just say this in terms of, and as I said, we celebrate Mitch because we knew what the times were. And this is also why those of us that have played for the Cleveland Browns is so happy. Because number one, when everybody else had 2 or 4, we had 7. And then we had 8 and so forth. But the things that we did differently here, we had as many Southerners on our team as anybody. But the thing that Paul Brown did each and every year was say to us, I don't have any blacks, I don't have any whites, I don't have anything here but Cleveland Browns. And that's the key thing. That's the key thing. But let me just say the one thing that all of us have in common, and the one thing that you must have is faith. Your faith will keep you going. It'll cause you to be able to handle things that you have no idea that's going to come into your life. There's not one of us sitting up here that haven't had the heartache of things that have happened in our lives individually that we didn't have any reason for them coming to us. But it happens. But when you have faith that you are going to do what you know you need to do, what you know you want to do in terms of your life, that faith will keep you from, quote, hating, from violence, going out getting drunk and hurting somebody, driving home drunk or whatever. Faith will do that for you. And that is why we say to you, whatever your goals are, and set your goals high. You know, we don't care whether you play football or not. You might want to be a doctor on one of these football teams. You might want to be an accountant for the Browns or any other team in the NFL. They got to have lawyers. You know, You may want to be a trainer. You may want to be a physical therapist. With all the injuries and everything else that are happening, there's so many jobs and opportunities for you. But the thing that you want to have above everything else is faith in where you're going. And faith will lead you down the path that you need to get there. That is why it is so important to you.
Great. Thank you, John. Another question from the audience? Young man in front.
My name is Cody Williams from Cleveland John Hay High School. And from your college choice to after your NFL career, are there any decisions you regret or you would change?
Any decisions that you would regret or change from your college career to your pro career?
You know, I don't have any. It was interesting about the draft. I was in bed and somebody came and woke me up and they said, "Is there a team called the Cleveland Browns?" And I said, "Yeah, there's a team called the Cleveland Browns, but why would you wake me up to tell me that?" And he said, "Because I think you were drafted by them." That's how important I was when I got drafted. So, the blessing, just quickly, the blessing for me was that I was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Believe me, this is one of the great, that experience was one of the great experiences of my life. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I just want to give him the real shocker. Do you realize that when I was a junior in college, I had never seen a pro football game? I had not seen a pro basketball game. I'd seen a couple of baseball games. When I was in high school, I'd never heard of pro football. I hadn't heard of pro basketball. So in other words, you got an advantage. You grow up knowing about all these things. So my focus had to be other than sports, because I knew nothing about professional sports. Strange, huh? So you can grab the game anytime. What you got to do first, look after yourself, because the game's going to come. You're so natural. You can play anything. I never ran a hurdle in my life. Hadn't even seen a hurdle. And yet the third time I ran the hurdles, I set a world record. No, you're natural. You're natural. So take that and sit it over there. You're natural. But let's work on this. What your values are, what you're going to do, what you're going to do about your life, how you're going to educate yourself. Because believe me, that will take care of itself. And don't forget that in a very short time, you're going to be parents. In a very short time. And at that point, what are you going to do about yours? What do you want for your kids? Don't worry about the mistakes. If that's part of you climbing, we'll take it. What you're going to do? You're going to be parents pretty soon. What do you want for yours?
Can I comment on that? Sure. I coached at Stanford. I coached Bobby Mitchell's son, Robert, one of the finest kids I've ever met. And so it's a real tribute to Bobby, not only as a great player, but as a parent. And I would take every kid that I ever coached in my life be like Robert Mitchell, and I'd be thrilled to death. He was a first-class kid in every way, has graduated from Stanford, graduated from law school at Georgetown, and is doing wonderful in his life. But I just wanted to comment on that part of it, the parenthood part.
Great. There's another question right here, young man.
How you doing? My name is Orlando Hobson. I'm from John Adams High School. My question is to Ollie. As you went through the things that you went through, just as the times that you went through in the time, who was that one person or the one thing that you looked to for advice or for help?
For me, it was my mom. You know, I was the mama's boy. And, you know, my mama said jump, I asked how high. But that was the best thing that I could have done. The question he was asking about, it was anything that you regretted, and I kept thinking, there's not a lot of things, but I remember as a Cleveland Brown, to be on the next level in terms of running backs were those who rushed for 1,000 yards. So I always wanted to rush for 1,000 yards. That was my goal. And the first year that I did it, I knew that I was going to get 1,000 yards because I was close enough and I had 3 games left. But in order to get 1,000 yards here at home in front of the Cleveland fans, I would have to rush for over 200 yards. And I did. I rushed for over 200 yards. And my regret is, and you guys that play running back, you can feel the pulse of the defense. You know when they just about then gave in. And when I rushed for the 1,000 yards, you know, I got a standing ovation. I walked off the field. I regret that I didn't go back on the field and get as many yards as I could have, because that's hard to do.
Hey, let me, the last thing for me, because I have to go at Wooten and the boys a little bit. Paul Brown trades me, and when I got to the Redskins, I was switched from running back to receiver, and I'd never played the position. I'd never, ever played receiver. So the first 3 or 4 preseason games, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just running down the field. The quarterback couldn't find me. Where in the heck is he going? But lo and behold, we opened at Cleveland in your stadium downtown, the Redskins. And Paul Brown, I knew him like the palm of my hand. Of course, I knew he was going to have the guys beating up on me a little bit. And for the whole game, they beat up on me pretty good. I never touched a football. Sorry, Woots. Didn't touch the football. We get down to the end of the game, and they are ahead of us, I guess, by 3. Rose had kicked a field goal or something, and they pretty well had the game. And I told my coach, I said, you know, I haven't touched the ball once. Galen Fish, every time I'd come out of the backfield, go down the field, he'd hit me in the stomach and knock me to the ground. So I thought we were friends, guys, stumping me. Paul had told him he better not do it. Wooten know it pretty well. So anyway, I went into the backfield. With my coach, I said, put him in the backfield, and we'll run the play out of the backfield to get me away from the line. Went into the backfield, and I came out, and Durham didn't run over and knocked me down again, which cut off the pattern. So I jumped up and started waving at Mill Plum. Not Mill Plum, I'm still in Cleveland.
Still in Cleveland.
I was in Redskins. So I'm waving at my quarterback, and he was getting tackled, and he just threw it away, and I reached up and got it. And for me, and you guys who play know, you want the wide side of the field so you can do your thing. But I turned to the short side of the field. I was so happy to have a ball. And I turned towards the Cleveland Browns bench. And it's the honest truth. When I broke to the sideline, I'm looking right at Jim Brown, John Wooten. I'm looking right at him. Paul Brown. And to this day, I don't know how I made the cut down that sideline because there was no room. But I made that cut down that sideline and sprinted through, and we beat the Cleveland Browns.
I'm not going to applaud that.
Well, on that happy note, we are coming close to the end of this program. We've had great questions and great discussion. As I promised you, you have have had a rare opportunity to sit here with these legends of pro football and to gain information about their lives. And I'd like to ask them each if they'd like to make a brief closing remark in the minute or two that we have left, starting with John.
Let me just say that I don't know why Mitch would end up our day like this, reminding us of what happened in 1962. But just wanted to point out the relationships. That's what we have. I tease Pruitt all the time that he's still getting deferred money from the University of Oklahoma, Wig, of course, But the whole point is the relationships are so important in your life. People that you trust and people that care about you. People that care about you. People that care about you are not going to ask you to do something that can jeopardize your life and your career. People that care about you simply won't do that. So that's why you'll be able to measure, because relationships is something that you're going to have for the rest of your life. Okay?
Thanks. Paul?
When I played pro football, I had as he had mentioned, I had my master's in general secondary as a teacher, so in the off seasons, I would go back to California and I'd teach school the second semester every year. And it was a real joy for me because I really believe in young people. One of the things that I think I missed when I when I retired from pro football, I was hired by the San Francisco 49ers, which meant I wasn't going to be teaching school anymore, and it was one of the things I really missed. But I really admire this stage of your life, and this is a real launching time for you, and I just, from my standpoint, really think it through and make the best of it, because if you really look at your life, this is a very pivotal point in it. There's going to be 4 or 5 pivotal points in your life where you become what you really want to become. But this one right now, because of your youth and your young thinking and some of those things, you really have to do the right thing. And I remember I felt like when I was teaching, I was able to change some lives. And I always felt good about that, and that's what I miss most. But I look out here, this is a bright-looking bunch of young people, and I applaud you.
Thank you.
Well,
Pruitt.
I leave with 3 things to keep in mind as a rule of thumb. Don't hang with people that have more to lose than you have. Second is, you got to love yourself before you expect somebody else to love you. You are somebody. And third, you have to be a little lucky. But luck is where opportunity meets preparation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
These guys are so smart.
Aren't
All I wanted when I got on that train, my mama wanted me to be a dentist. And I'd only seen one dentist in my whole life as my example. And I don't think he was really a true dentist because I saw him with horses and everybody else. So when you take off, just remember this, you don't really know how it's going to end up. But you got to be standing on something. I remember the first time I came home from school, and my neighbors and everybody saying, "Doctor is home. Dr. Mitchell is home." And I'm flunking out of Illinois. I said, no. Dr. Mitchell. The expectations are there. And, everybody around you wants you to do good and get your thing. And you've got to want to stay in there and hang in there so that you can get what you want. Play your games, enjoy your games, go as far as you can with it. But why don't you leave out here without this high school diploma? I'm telling you, because I'll come back and find you. Okay, lots of luck.
Let's give them a hand for their presentation. Thank all of you for being with us today, and we certainly wish you the best of success in your career and in your life. Thank you.